Hello. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite eyeshadows. A lot of times I'll get asked what my favorite one and done eyeshadows are, and I thought what would be a better use of all of our time is just kind of walking through all of my favorite eyeshadows. Some of them will be in eyeshadow palettes, some of them won't be in eyeshadow palettes. Some of them will be things I depotted from eyeshadow palettes and I don't remember where they came from. And the point of this isn't really to sell you on anything. I will link the ones that are still available down below. What I really want to do is just kind of show you my favorite eyeshadows, have fun, just kind of swatch a bunch of stuff, which is not my usual gig, but I'm in the mood today and I have the time. I have 3 eyeshadows from Phyto Surgeons I would like to tell you about. This is Crystal Constellation. This is a very beautiful, easy to wear, sparkly brown. I feel like I tend to wear I don't think they're hard eyeshadows to wear, but I think that a lot of people find them difficult to wear. But I would say that a sparkly brown is going to be a lot of people's jam. But it's also not a super dark eyeshadow. It's a nice light brown. And whenever you blend it out, it obviously can be as sheer or as intense as you'd like it to be. But there is some nice big particles of sparkle in there. I also have 2 sparklier shadows. I think these are the ones that most people always want comparisons of. It's Fractal Freesia and Lunar Lightwave. I think that of the 2, this one is the more neutral sparkles, but neither one of them is truly, I would say, so out of left field that you wouldn't be able to wear it. I think there is a little bit of blue in Lunar Lightwave. It's so funny swatching these because they tend to be on the eye more of a sparkle topper. Both of them have a slight base color to them. So on my index finger, that is Fractal Freesia, and then this is Lunar Lightwave on my middle finger. So Fractal Freesia is that one right there. And then there's Lunar Lightwave. Both are really beautiful. I would say that Lunar Lightwave maybe has less of a base than even Fractal Freesia. Both are equally sparkly. I've had Fractal Freesia for a while. It was the one that was released first. And I feel because so many people love Fractal Freesia, they went on to release a bunch of sparkly shades. I'm trying some different lighting today. So I want to catch all of the sparkles. Lighting coming from one direction tends to be better for that, but it's unusual for me because normally there's so much light in my room whenever I film. This is different, but the light is coming from directly above, so I'll just make sure I shift my hands. But those are my favorite 3 Phyto Surgeons eyeshadows. My arm is going to get covered in sparkles in this video, and all I need to say to you now is that sorry, I cannot get all the sparkles off my hand every time I swatch. It's just simply not going to happen. And we have so much sparkle to get through. Since we started with single shadows, I'm going to just continue with single shadows, whether they're from a major brand or a small brand. So I have 2 from Chantecaille I'd like to swatch for you. These are both one and done shadows to me. I like to wear these a lot. They're honestly not very different from each other. They're listed as different. So this is Elephant, and they call this a Shimmering Taupe Gray. There's a lot of mystery behind these eyeshadows if you've never gotten to see them in person. But honestly, they're really special baked shadows. I'm not going to try to tell you that any eyeshadow is worth 50 whatever dollars. All I will tell you is they kind of go on sale quite a bit. and I like having them. I'm okay spending that. And this is the kind of thing, I said, a one and done shadow. I like to wear them. This is Rhino, and I would say of the lineup of all of the Chantecaille eyeshadows, Rhino is the most unique because it has some weird sparkles in it. Now, they're both really sparkly, but Rhino has some holographic sparkles in it. It's interesting. So they describe it as a sophisticated olive. So Elephant's on my index finger, and then Rhino is on my middle finger. So there's Elephant, and there is Rhino. And hopefully, I think it'll be more clear in these after swatches on my finger. Hopefully, it's catching on camera, that weird, off-kilter sparkle that Rhino has. It's really fun, but it's really fun in like a, you know, Chantecaille kind of way. Obviously, there are like a lot of shadows that have a lot of weird and interesting sparkle in them, but like a brand like Chantecaille isn't really going to do that. But I think you can see like these are pretty close together in color. Like I would say that Rhino's like barely olive. Like it's like barely. I would say it's like closer to a taupe, like a taupe that leans a little bit green. Elephant is a little bit like warm leaning. Like I like my taupes to be like on the cooler purple gray side of things, but they're both really, really beautiful eyeshadows. They're really stunning, and I just feel like there's a lot to these. They're so much prettier in person than any swatching video I've ever seen of them. And I think the person who's done the best at swatching them is honestly Stephanie, the style stumbler. I'll try to remember to link her video. She was just in a store and like took footage of the swatches and took natural lighting footage of it in the direct sunlight. And they just were so pretty. They're so pretty. If you have a place that sells them locally and you've ever been interested in them, I would say go interact with them in person before buying them. You don't have to buy them there. You know, like I said, you can find these on sale online sometimes. Even retailers that sell Chantecaille will often run some sales. So yeah, if you're interested in it, there's a way to get them not $54, but they're still expensive for single eyeshadows. I think they're worth it. I also have Pangolin. It's just not my favorite, but it's really, really nice. I definitely use these two more than I use Pangolin. So that's why they've made it into this video. I have one single shadow from Surratt. This is their Soufflé shadow in Pluie Mauve. And I think we've all been wondering like how these would hold up over time. But this definitely feels less wet than it did when I first got it, but it's still applying really beautifully. And this is like one of those interesting shadows kind of like all around. Like in the pan, it's like this weird jelly. And then when you swatch it on your finger, it kind of looks like it's gonna be really intense, and you can definitely build it up to being this. But whenever you swatch it and whenever you get it on your eyes, it is like really sheer. And what I love about this color in particular is that it's like this purple with these green sparkles, which you can see on my middle finger. For some reason, like the after swatch on the finger always tends to give you a fuller story. But I like this sheer wash. These hold up really well on my eyelids. But Pluie Mauve, I've tried 3 of the shades, is certainly the one that I think is the most unique of the shades that I have gotten to try. It's just something special. Surratt every now and then does like very nuanced, unique colors, and I think Pluie Mauve is one of them. It's like this cool purple with the green sparkles. I don't feel like I've ever gotten it to be this dark on my eyes. It normally just kind of feels pretty sheer. And this is like 3 layers of it. But once it dries, it's, you know, it's there. I still really like this shade. This is one of those shades that like if I didn't have it anymore, it would be a shade I would go out and buy. I did receive this in PR. I will make sure that I notate that all down in the description box next to the link, whether or not I got it in PR. If it has asterisks next to it, that means I received it in PR. This next one is very, very new to my collection. In fact, I like just got it last week, but it is the shade Olivine from Rituel de Fille, and it is the collab with Andromeda. And I did a whole video dedicated to the launch. I don't know if this will still be in stock by the time I get up the video, but I will link it if I can. This shade is so stunning. And it's actually been, and I haven't been this excited about like an eyeshadow in a while, where it's like the only thing I want to wear, but it is the only thing I've wanted to wear since I've gotten it. And I've gotten some other things in PR that I need to give some attention to, but I really only want to wear Olivine. Andromeda did such a really good job making this like very wearable, mossy olive green color that has beautiful neutral sparkles in it. The formula on this eyeshadow, it doesn't have the best longevity on my eyes. I find that based on the way I see other people talk about eyeshadow, my eyes tend to crease things up a lot faster than most people if it's a formula known to be creasy. But whenever it does crease up, you can just tap it out and it looks just as good as new, to be quite honest with you. But I also really like that like lived in yucky look that this kind of gives me after a while on my eyes. I've been really, really liking it. It's so pretty. It makes me want to try more of these eyeshadows from Rituel de Fille. But I think, because I have one of the lighter shades called Flora, and I don't enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed having this darker one. I know they have some like pretty, pretty dark ones. So I'll have to look into them because I'm just like so into that. Like Look at that. Get out of here. So don't yell at me, but I am going to show you something that is discontinued. This is from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is one of the hypnotizing pop shots. We joke a lot about me like loving Charlotte Tilbury, but I still don't feel like I understand the brand, because I feel like a lot of the things that people really like from them that they've released as limited edition, like, just kind of go away for no reason. Not that they needed to keep all of the colors, but I think that this color in particular is often sought after when people see it. It's the shade Smoky Quartz, which is, you know, one of my favorite categories of eyeshadow. It's like a taupe. But this, unlike the elephant shade from Chantecaille, is that more cool, almost purple gray kind of taupe. And what's really beautiful about it is that it has such intense sparkle to it. It's just, having tried some other Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows, she just like doesn't have anything like this. And I get it for a holiday release. You know, a lot of people want to wear razzle dazzle around the holiday season. So if you buy it when it was launched, I think it came out in like September or October. You could wear it for all of your, you know, Thanksgiving. You could wear it for Christmas. But like, this is so cool. It doesn't have the best longevity on my eyes, but like, I just would love to see more of this kind of thing from Charlotte Tilbury. Make something for the cool kids too, because I feel like this was the one thing that I tried from Charlotte Tilbury whenever I tried the brand that people were like, oh, that. And it was already sold out and gone by the time I like posted my review of it. Like, it was like, already so far gone. So yeah, I want to see that back. This video is certainly inspired. Amanda Z recently did a video, I will link it down below, where she just did an eyeshadow declutter, but it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes of her just swatching beautiful sparkly eyeshadows. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I would like to I want to participate in such an activity. So that's why we're doing this video today too. Okay, let's do an indie brand. And I think all of these are still available. These are 3 shades from the Seeking Shifts collection from Shine by SD. This is a Glaminatrix holder, but I have a Shine by SD shade in there. This first shade we'll talk about should come as no surprise to any of you if I can get it open. This is the shade Ice Blink. And I also have Nacre and Fogbow. And they're these iridescent white shadows. But my favorite part about Ice Blink, which I'll swatch first, is I feel like it reads as more of like a topper. There's a lot of different texture happening in here, and it's a very cool wet look eyeshadow, but there is some like orange in there too, which I know Riley was like really excited about, and that's what makes it feel so different. I'm not really one for that icy blue effect, but Ice Blink is seriously such a special shade. Then we have Nacre, which was the one I just swatched, which is this awesome, beautiful green. And there's so much sparkle in it that it almost looks like it's like one consistent color, but it literally, it's so sparkly. But I think the size of the sparkles are pretty consistent in this shade, as opposed to Ice Blink, which I think has a variance in sizes of sparkle, which I think what makes it look so much more sparkly and wet. And then we have Fogbow, which is kind of one of those like Houdini shades where it's like, I feel like in some lighting you can see it, in some lighting you can't, but it is like this iridescent pink kind of thing. They're so pretty. But if I had to pick my favorite of the 3 I'm showing you, Ice Blink is like one of my favorite eyeshadows, but I really enjoy using the other 2 as well. But Ice Blink is always a fave. That's why it has its own compact, because I like wearing it so much. I like to have easy access to it. It's so good. It's so good. Ice Blink. I feel like I haven't worn it in a minute. Like, who am I? I need to wear Ice Blink again. I have a couple of shades from Natasha Denona palettes. I deconstructed all of my remaining Natasha Denona palettes except for the gold palette. So I have some like shades. I believe that these are from both the blue purple and the green blue larger palettes that Natasha Denona used to have. And I think you can see what's happening here. I have like 2 purpley taupes and then like 2 gray. One's like a gray-green taupe. These are definitely not going to be as sparkly as what we have been swatching, but they're so beautiful. I just love this kind of sheen. I feel like I've for a while I fell out of like things that were metallic and not sparkly, but I'm getting like back into this kind of thing whenever they look like this. I feel like these shades are also pretty prominent in an eyeshadow palette we'll talk about later in the video. But like, let's look at those. Just like, how can you, they're so delicious. I have been like a little bit in like my purple bag. So like this purple kind of taupey shade is so good. I mean, just like, I don't know, I can't get enough of this. One's like green. And then this one definitely has some more texture to it. I would say it's like a much more harsh metallic than the other three. They are really beautiful. You can see in this shade right here, it has a bit of a dip going. Probably because I also swatch it a lot. But I feel like a lot of my favorite eyeshadows are sometimes not even ones that always make it onto my eye, but are more so shades that I like swatch and consider a lot, which sounds weird, but like it happens. But you can see how like the remnants of these are not like the sparkles of the other ones. It's just like beautiful, shiny metallic. I forgot one of the ones from the Seeking Shifts collection. This is the shade Crown Flash. And this is kind of like I don't even know how to describe this shade. I feel like it reads as pink, sort of, but there's so much to it. I feel like it's like a little bit peachy. It also has a lot of sparkle, but it definitely has a lot more base pigment than the other shadows from Shine by SD that I showed you. These are two shades I depotted from Pat McGrath. I believe that this one came from one of, I think the Mega palette. It might have come from the Mega palette, I think. And I think that this came from one of the 6-pan palettes. I'm like 90% certain that this shade's called Pale Fire. And it was one of the first Pat McGrath shades I ever kind of like fell in love with. It's like this duochrome, like peachy shade. So it has like this peachy pink purple shift. It's so stunning. It was sold as a single when she did the single shadows. If it still existed in the single shadows, it would be something that I would recommend. And I think I remember it being one of the single shadows. I gave it to Tiff because I already had it, because I don't know, I've always been in love with this shade. It's not my usual thing. Even whenever I fell in love with it, it wasn't my usual thing. I was into a lot brighter colors at the time. Not so much texture, but definitely like colorful makeup. I loved a colorful matte, but like this shade has always had my heart. It's just such an easy thing to like put all over your lid too. Like, and it has just a little bit of something, something. Especially if you're like fair like me, it gives you a little bit of like coverage on your lids. And then as people see it hit different light, they're going to catch something on your lids. It's gorgeous. And this is actually something, whenever I did my declutter in July, I remember swatching and going, I have been into like a mauve situation. Before recently, I thought of mauve as like always having to be like warm, but mauve can be gray. And that's what I'm really into. Like it has some gray to it. The blushes I've been drawn towards recently have been this like gray-y, mauve-y thing. And this isn't, I think, 100% cool toned, but it's like, it's got like some yucky in it. And I love it. I don't know where this came from. I'm fairly certain it's a Pat McGrath. When I decluttered in July, I did a pretty big overhaul of my Clionadh shadows. I have more than 4 of them, but I really got to appreciate the ones that I really liked by swatching all of them. But like these are like top tier. So I typically like their glitter multichromes. I don't love the black based smooth multichromes. I'm just a big fan of texture. I just like really textured eyeshadow. But I think only one of these is just a black based multichrome. I think the rest are glitters. We have the shade Carving here. Whenever I was doing the declutter, I recognized the names of these 4 because I was just always obsessed with them. So you can see here, it's like, it's one of those like shifty kind of to a red, orange kind of thing. It has like a lot of beautiful texture to it. It's really stunning. Bloodline, which I think it's a fan favorite. I think a lot of people love Bloodline. Ugh. Honestly, it kind of looks like a more intense version of Pale Fire from Pat McGrath that we swatched earlier. There's just something about it. Like, I'm not super into like warm tones, but like there's something just about that color that's so stunning. And this has always been my favorite Clionadh shade. It's the shade Weld. And it is a black-based multichrome that shifts from like green to magenta. And while it's not like one of the sparkle formulas, it does have a surprising amount of like texture in it that I find that some of the black-based multichromes don't. Oh man, but that's so sick. I feel like you're catching mostly magenta on camera. And I don't have a mirror nearby to like really show you all of the shifts, but they're there. And this one's a newer favorite of mine. It's the shade Opulent, which is like kind of like, I don't know what to call it. I feel like all the colors together make it look like a gray, but there's a lot going on there. I feel like there's like pink, green, and purple kind of happening in there all at once. And it kind of makes like this, I don't know, you know how when you like mix a bunch of colors together that don't kind of go together, they make like that gray color. But like whenever you see it in person, it kind of gives you like, you can see all of the colors. I wonder what they actually describe that shade as, but like to me, it's like light taupe. But then when you swatch it, it's like all sorts of different colors. It's gorgeous. Really big into that one. I only have a couple singles left. This is from Victoria Beckham. This is the shade Mink. This is like maybe my favorite eyeshadow. Certainly in my top 5. And it's so interesting. I don't think that something being your favorite eyeshadow means that it has to be your most worn. Because like this is a thing that I like covet. It's not that I never wear it, by the way. That's not what I mean. I just freaking love this. It's a taupe, but it's a sparkly taupe. But it has this like warm brown base to it that makes it something really unique. And it's like not for everyone. I know a lot of people who like want to love this shade, but the fact that it has that warmth in it really throws them. I just kind of like that a choice was made here. Just like this silver glitter, this really cool tone glitter over top of like this warm base is just, I don't know. And the beautiful shimmer particles are so prevalent, especially when you get it on your eye. I just like love it. It's so luscious. The formula is stunning. It's just like, what's not to like covet about this? Like, it's just such a cool shade. I mean, I think shades like this definitely exist in other parts of the market, but something I really respect about some luxury brands, especially when it comes to eyeshadow, they'll do something, this feels like off kilter. Like it doesn't feel like something like a luxury brand would make. But I love whenever they do that because I feel like they tend to play it really safe. But then something like this will be in a brand like that. And it's like, oh God, it's so just stunning. It's so stunning. So what I'm about to show you is like a bit of a spoiler. What I'm about to say about them is also a bit of a spoiler for a video, which I bought these just to do a video on them. I wasn't expecting to have bigger feelings on them. I have 2 moondust eyeshadows. At Ulta, they were recently half off. And someone asked in my comment section recently, like the difference between indie eyeshadow shimmers and like what you can buy on the regular market. And I thought this might be a good base for like what we could consider a regular shimmer, but I don't think that that's true. I don't think that's true. I have found that there is a reason that these are as popular as they are. And it's so funny because this isn't even my first interaction with them. I've owned one of these before when they came in the old bulky packaging. But this is the shade Space Cowboy. The one, I guess, like the one that most people really lose their mind over. And I also have the shade Lithium, which Lithium is an interesting one. And we'll talk about it in a second. But my God. So Space Cowboy, I'm going to try to get more of the pigment off my fingers. They're starting to get a little stained with other things. It's this super sparkly, peachy beige. And one thing I will say is that if you've ever swatched these in an Ulta or a Sephora, it's not the same as like having it at home. And I don't know I don't know how to explain that. This is so sparkly. Like it's just kind of like sparkle. Yeah, it does have that base to it, but like look at my finger. That looks like a metallic. And then if you look at my wrist, it looks just like straight sparkle. I love it. I love that it is this like gorgeous, wet looking sheen. And for me on my skin tone, I can just really slap this on the eye, and it's like a high impact without deepening out the like corners or anything. It's just like something on my eyes. I've worn this a number of times in person, and the people I was out with were like, "What's on your eyes?" And I was like, "It's literally freaking Space Cowboy." And I wasn't saying that to dismiss them, but like I was just like, you wouldn't believe how easy this is for you to go go out and buy. Like this just exists in the world. And I think like there's a lot to be said for why like this is a thing that every couple of years goes viral. It's really cool. And like when new people find out about makeup, it's something that's easily accessible to a lot of people that has the impact of a lot of things that are harder to find, like, you know, Shine by SD or Clionadh, or, you know, not at the price point of something like Chantecaille, which I'm sure Chantecaille could do something like this too. It's just incredible. It's such a pretty color. Then we have Lithium, which I know a lot of people really like, and I really like it as well. It's funny because sometimes it looks really green to me, and then I say that, and then I look at it again, and it's like, okay, where'd the green go? But on my eyes, I feel like I see some green to it. Maybe there's some green in the brown, but it's also really sparkly. It's a lot like Victoria Beckham's Mink without, you know, that warmth to the base. Like there is a little bit of warmth, but it's not as strong as what happens in Mink. And like I said, there's like a little bit of green, just like I wouldn't call it like a green eyeshadow, but there's some of that in there. But it's also super sparkly and super reflective. I think it's a little less special than Space Cowboy. I think of all the things that we've swatched today, Space Cowboy is like kind of the only thing that does that. Very similar to like the Fenty Diamond Bomb, almost. It's not the same texture as that, but it almost has like the same idea where it's like just glitter suspended in something very, very translucent, you know? This has more of a base than the Fenty ones, but they're really cool. I think that there's just something to them. We will do some comparisons more directly with those and some other eyeshadows, but I think they're really great, which I wasn't expecting to have that feeling. Okay, so we're going to move on to some eyeshadow palettes that I have that have some very special shades in them, if not just one special shade in them. We'll start with a discontinued item. This is from Olivia Palermo. This is her palette in Au Naturel. This brand just doesn't exist anymore, but here is the palette, and it's this shade right here. I think you could still buy these eyeshadow, like these palettes, but they're a little bit harder to find because they are discontinued, but it seems like most retailers still kind of have them. It's like this beautiful, sparkly beige. It's not as intensive a sparkle as a lot of the things that we've been swatching, but it's really shiny, really just pretty. I have like, you know, we laugh a lot about me kind of liking boring eyeshadows, and I think this is so boring, but also so pretty. Like, look at that. Oh, I think it has a lot of the qualities of the things we've seen. There's a little bit of a warm base, but the shine on top is a little bit silver. I like wearing this eyeshadow palette in particular simply because I get to put that shade on. The rest of the palette's really beautiful too. I know this isn't one of my favorite shades, but like having that to play with too, the blue. It's very sparkly. Olivia Palermo has some like really cool sparkly shades too, that blue being one of them. But this is the star of the show when I open that palette, even though it's supposed to surround that blue. The beige is where it's at for me. So this is from an indie brand. This is from Glam and Matrix. This was the Fairy Lights palette, and I think they're not making this anymore. They made it for a little bit afterward. There might still be some in stock. I'm not 100% sure on that. They've restocked this a couple of times, but this was like their last year's holiday release. It's a palette of like 6 of this type of formula. I don't know how to describe it, except for this one is a holochrome, the shade Cracker. But the shade Presence, it's this like metallic lavender, which is sick, like sick. But there's also, I can't explain how much, it's metallic because there's so much sparkle in it. But the sparkle, whenever you blend it out, it becomes more piecey, and then you can see all the sparkles in it. Like this is what it would look like if you just put it all over your lid, right? You don't really see the glitter particles, but then when you blend it out, look at how much there's, like, I can't explain. It's so shocking how much sparkle is in these shadows. There's so much sparkle, but this kind of like lavender is so pretty because it's, you know, kind of has that cool toned gray-y sparkle to it. Ugh, it's so pretty. Even though that this palette is discontinued, Glaminatrix, I don't know 100% if this shade is still available, but a lot of times they'll discontinue like making the palette in full, but you can still buy the shades individually. And like, this is certainly a shade that I think is like worth going out of your way for. All of the shades in here are very beautiful, but Presence is the one. That's the one. I also really like the shade Star, but if I'm going into this palette, normally it's to use the shade Presence. And of course, like I said, it was their holiday release last year. That's why it's called Presents. I know that there's so much glitter on my hands, but look at this. I already wiped off this hand and there's still so much glitter remaining from the shade Presents. Like that's most of the glitter that's left on my hand. I just kind of got glitter everywhere because of that shade. They're so fully packed with like shimmer. They're so cool. I ran out of micellar water and I'm using like alcohol. My hands are getting so dry. It's fine. It's fine. I do it for the craft. Another discontinued thing. This is from Makeup by Mario. It's the Ethereal Eyes palette. I mean, I just love this palette. I just love this palette. And honestly, a lot of the shimmers in here kind of read the same, especially like this row. But this, a lot of times I'm actually using this palette with other shimmers in mind because I really like the mattes in here. But look at that. Doesn't that look like Space Cowboy? It's very, very similar. So if you missed out on this palette and you were interested in the shimmers, I would say that the Moondust eyeshadows from Urban Decay are very, very similar. Maybe there's a little more sparkle here, like consistent, like kind of making it look a little more metallic, and a stronger base in it that you can see more of that like peachy beige base. But it's like very, very similar. I really, hopefully this holiday season, Mario, I beg of you, release some variants of this shimmer formula because I think people would really dig that. I don't think he'll do that because he always zigs when I think he's gonna zag. The Smoky Glam palette from Bella Beaute Bar. I love a lot of stuff in here. And earlier I swatched some shades from Natasha Denona. These shades are very similar. These taupey gray shades are very similar because like Natasha Denona doesn't make those palettes anymore. You could get it from something like this. There are two shades in here that I really like. The shade Milk Bath, which is up here, and the shade Imagine, which it's so funny because I have shades like this in singles, but like for some reason, I love reaching into this palette for these. So here's Milk Bath. Just look at that. Just a stunner. Like just a beautiful, bright, like it's not white. There's like a little bit of a pink shift to it and there's like different colors, sparkles in it. But like, oh my God, look at how stunning that is. I love that shade. And then this is the shade Imagine, which is really flaky when you pick it up. But when you put it on, it's like kind of translucent and then you are left, and it's not really flaky looking. It's more consistent than that. It's still sparkly, but like, I kind of love that it's like, again, one of those shadows that looks invisible from some angles. And then whenever the light hits it such a way, you get that blue pink shift, which as you probably have noticed, as we've swatched all of my favorite eyeshadows, this is not something that like comes up often in my mind as something I really want to wear. But like this shade is something I really want to wear. And again, like that blue is not always something I'm like looking for, especially like that strong of a blue, but I don't know. There's something to that shade that like makes me very happy. It's incredible. I only have a couple palettes left. We'll dig into this. This is the Natasha Denona Gold palette. And I love a lot of the eyeshadows in here. It's a very well-loved palette in my collection. Hannah Louise Poston introduced me to Sparks and Kava and kind of like the idea of like eyeshadow layering in general. And these really wet-looking things being like something to covet. And I really like, you know, the greens and mustards in there. I mean, look at that. It's just like all of the other beautiful things I've swatched. Like this is where that kind of love for that eyeshadow started. And I do think that like, you know, more modern formulas are better at this, but it doesn't mean I still don't appreciate and reach for these. And these are a little bit warmer than I really like to go. But you can tell, like, unlike the Moondust eyeshadow or the one from Makeup by Mario, how these are basically just like entirely translucent. There's just no base to them. They are just that sparkle, that just wet looking gorgeousness. I will always appreciate this palette from that. I also like these greens. I just don't reach for them a ton, like the green and the green gold. They're really beautiful too. Like that duochrome. It's pretty sick. But I think that you know, like I said, I think these very special textured formulas are a little more readily available now. I just realized that my camera is kind of like at a shifted angle, so I apologize that. But I'm now 47 minutes into filming. I couldn't really tell until the palettes came into view, and I feel like you can tell that it's like a little bit off kilter, but that's okay. Again, we're trying a new setup here. Do you know what this is? Answer below before I open it. Do you know what this is? It's the Industrial Pigments palette from Isamaya. I did pop off the top of this. I heard it was really easy to do, and I was getting just sick of it sitting in my drawer like that, because I would normally like sit it upright like this because it had that like very textured top, and it would like always move to the back of the drawer, which is bad. And also I don't know, it made me feel some kind of way about this palette. But there is one shade in here that I think is so special, and it's this one right here. It's this black, plebby, holographic shimmer. Obviously, like, this is unlike any of the other shades I've shown you. Like, it's so dark. It has such a strong base to it, but like, it has so many different colored sparkles. It's like an incredible shadow. I like a lot of the shades in here, but like this one is like, I always try to use this eyeshadow whenever I'm in this palette. It's kind of a one and done shadow, to be quite honest with you. Like, you could mix it with some of the other shadows in there, but like, I mean, the cheese stands alone. Like, look at that. It's like one of those, it's like a true definition of like an oil slick, but it's done with this black base and just like a ton of glitter. Like, you can see that the base is the matte, because look at all the shimmer going around it when you blend it out. It's not like a sequin eyeshadow where like it's like a matte shadow with sparkles in it. Like, it definitely like applies like a regular shimmer shadow. I know a lot of people don't like sequin eyeshadows, but like, it kind of gives that energy off, and then it's just so incredible. I know, again, we're talking about my favorite shadows. Another favorite shadow in here is this silver, because it's like yucky. Not in tone, but like, it's like this really flaky formula that I like. It's like kind of hard to use like this, but it's like such a silver. It's not something I wear very often, but like, I like that it's there. It's one of those shadows that like, there's so much shimmer particle in it that it makes it just like a solid metallic. I just love that. Like, that's pretty. We're on the last palette, and it is my custom Pat McGrath palette that I made by depotting a bunch of Pat McGrath eyeshadows. This thing is so cool. I'm like so glad I did it. But there are two shades in here that I always think about as being like my favorite Pat McGrath shadows that are in this baked formula. This is one of them. I don't know which palette it's from. Sure, someone will chime in. It's like this champagne, and then this rose gold, which is from the bronze palette. These four did not hop. I put these 6 in here. That rose gold. My goodness. Again, it's that translucent thing. There's a little more, there's not even really a base to it. There's just so much particles here. It gives you that beautiful wet look. And then this is like the same thing, but rose gold. And I don't wear a lot of rose gold anymore, but I was really into it for a long time. And I would pull out this palette specifically to take some Mehron mixing medium and apply that to the eyes. But like, look at this. I mean, my hand's so many different colors mixed together right now. Just look at how juicy that is. It's a bummer that she doesn't really do the baked shades anymore, because I think whenever they are the translucent based ones, they're like so great. But the ones that have like more pigment to them are like harder to use, like that red one. And then this blue. They're not as, you know, look at them versus the other two, right? Like the texture is like, it's not the same. Like, I still like those shadows, but like, look at those. And then look at those. Do you know what I mean? Like, so incredible. Thank you so much for swatching with me today. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, I will have all of the single shadows that I can link to that are still available. I'll link them down below for you in affiliate links. And again, the ones that I got in PR will be marked with an asterisk next to them. I'll also link the palettes, but if you're looking for that one shade, I would say finding a dupe as opposed to buying the palette as a whole, unless you really think the palette is beautiful, is probably a better idea rather than buying the whole palette. Like the Pat McGrath shades, I don't think that you need to buy a whole palette for one shade if you like those. Anyway, I had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are new to my channel is mostly about loving my makeup collection as it currently is, while being a little bit critical and cynical of the makeup world at large. And I want to help myself and help you build the habit of being more discerning about the makeup that we're buying. So if that sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe. I like to do content where I'm like loving on things I already own, which was this whole video. None of this was bought for this video specifically. And I'm on Patreon and I have channel memberships. You can check those out, links down below. I do some additional content over there. Recently, I put up a poll about what brand should I do a deep dive review on next. A lot of people are just voting on what I already offered, but I also want to hear recommendations of brands too. So check that out. There's no pressure to join Patreon or channel members. It's just a way to support me. It's not a better way to support me. I just appreciate that you're here, liking, commenting, and sharing. Based on this video, let me know down below what eyeshadows I should check out. I would prefer single shadow recommendations rather than whole palettes, or just let me know what your favorite eyeshadows are too. Like what's your favorite eyeshadow? If it's in a palette, let us know what palette it's in. I want to hear it down below because it's so fun to like be like, oh, this one's my favorite or these are my favorites. I just would love to hear it. And that's going to wrap up the video. There is a link in my pinned comment to help a family in Gaza if you have the means to support. Please do that. And that's the end of the video. Remember to follow your hope and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth. It's out.